we talked like months ago about Hanna-Barbera talking about censorship. This is a really fascinating article. It's about censoring children's television. It's written by, and Rob, you might want to follow up on this. It's reprinted from an article from Penthouse magazine, the June 1991 issue. Penthouse was a magazine, not about apartments.
Written by Michael Straczynski, Babylon 5 creator himself.
Great issue.
That's right. And we have notes for this story. This relates to a story we did months ago, but it's worth noting. Badger, you have notes on this. And I'll provide the link.
And not to be confused with a Penthouse letter, right?
That's right. Not a letter. This is a guest editorial. It is worth hearing now, 30 plus years later, to listen to this.
Dear Penthouse, I never thought it would happen to me. No, sorry. I'm sorry.
Wait, there's articles in Penthouse?
Right.
We found the one. We were reading it for the articles. TV writers don't just battle plot twists and deadlines. They also deal with the behind-the-scenes army of consultants, psychologists, and censors who think they know what's best for kids. These so-called watchmen have shifted from flagging cartoon violence to policing the ideas behind shows. For example, on The Real Ghostbusters, which I used to watch, a consultant said Egon couldn't wear angular glasses because kids are scared of sharp objects. When writers offered to make them round, that was shot down too, because apparently glasses make characters seem cold. Another consultant demanded Janine, a bold and funny fan favorite, be rewritten to act more like a nurturing mother, and they even suggested that one black character, Winston, should be reduced to the low-profile role of driving the team's car, while the white characters got the leadership and driving Miss Ghostbusters. Yes, and the notes only get weirder. On She-Ra, consultants didn't want the lead female character to be physically strong or assertive. Stopping a tank was too much, but ballet-style moves were fine. In Captain Power, which was literally an anti-war show, a watchdog group protested the entire post-apocalyptic setting, saying kids shouldn't even see that kind of world. One group claimed signs of Satanism in teens included being sad, listening to rock music, or gasp, being curious. These experts were getting paid over $150 an hour for this kind of input, and sometimes they'd conveniently stop protesting once they were hired as consultants. Meanwhile, network censors were hard at work too, asking writers to avoid words like netherworld, too close to hell, or show characters praying could be interpreted as demonic worship. It's a surreal system where the loudest, most fearful voices can end up shaping what kids watch, unless someone speaks up.
What do we think about this? I mean, I'll just say this is it's not a surprise. Not a surprise. Paul, I'm really curious your thoughts as well as you.
Well, this just comes under the category of network notes. This is possibly the funniest thing I experienced on a constant basis while I was doing what I was doing. I remember that we had one executive suggest that we can't use the word portage because no one in the United States knew what it meant.
Right. Hey, can you tell me what portage means?
What?
Can you tell me what portage means?
Sure. You know what portage. Don't give me a heart. So
no, I'm being serious.
And it was endless, and the weirdest words that they would pick out. And the point was, you go back and you say, yeah, we made all the changes you said, and then we don't make any of the changes, and they don't notice. But we called it flexing. So and the censors flexed, the consultants flexed, and also executives, creative executives who you had absolutely no respect for, flexed. They had to open their mouths. They couldn't come to a rehearsal taping without them giving you the dumbest notes possible, and you had to find a way to react to it in a positive way.
Wait, porridge?
Portage.
Yes, sorry. That's what I'm saying. The act or instance of caring. Come on, what are we doing here? Yeah, we don't know that word. They were right on that one. Sorry. The school system failed us.
But yeah, it was. I mean, it was for those of us in the creative side of things with a sense of humor and irony. It was just head shaking. I don't know where these people came from, and I don't know where they got the power from.
Listen to the sentence. We had to portage for half a mile around the waterfall.
There you go.
Do you picture it in your mind now?
Well, you have to be carrying a canoe while you're portaging.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to be carrying a weight. Yeah,
with some weight. Yes, portage. That.
I mean, are we now with executive? Look, I've dealt with people like this. I've produced some television shows for FX and other. I did shows. I worked for a lot of different places, small places, nothing big, but it was the dumbest people trying to really justify their jobs. Yeah. That's what it was. It felt like I'm justifying why I'm here getting paid too much money. If I don't say anything, what do they need me for? So I don't know if anyone else has had experience.
You know, I used to do marketing and advertising, design, things like that. And the piece of advice someone gave me was always have some kind of a mistake in your design so that when you show it to your supervisor, they'll find it and tell you need to fix it and they'll feel good about it. And that's what this feels like.
Well, also everyone, I think, Chris, as you probably know, I mean, I've only worked. I directed and edited a Skinamax TV show for HBO and Cinemax called Femme Fatales. I directed 5 episodes of 2 seasons of that show, and we would get network notes back, and like they would tell me, because the sex scenes were important. They would say, like, you really need to add 23 seconds more of breast caressing. And I would get these notes back.
The notes?
And in the notes, because they would tell us that they would time the sex scenes, because it was a 30-minute show, and they knew for their late night audience that we were supposed to provide this much sexual activity. But what was really interesting was I was always trying to make it better, like more erotic, like you can go watch real pornography. It was all fake. So the further you got away from it, so I would bring the camera closer in, and sometimes they wouldn't like that. You know, they're like, can't you just pull the camera out? And I'm like, isn't it more erotic? I mean, if you get really in close and you just see a hand caressing
Rob was an auteur of Cinemax.
I was trying to. Hey, the website Fleshbot said I directed the most
no, Paul.
lesbian sex scene ever. But no, but it was wild getting these notes back.
I'm gonna go portage out my puke real quick. Sorry.
I know, but the same thing would be true. You get notes on things, and being an editor for a long time, you know, you'd get notes back from producers, and the problem was people weren't looking at the big picture. They would see one thing that they personally didn't like, and they didn't understand that, like, there's a larger picture that you're not seeing here, and you're focusing on something that's like not to your taste, but you're not thinking about the movie as a whole. And that was the thing that used to bother me the most, is that you would get these little things, and it's like you're asking for something that is not, it's not about storytelling, and it's not about the work itself. It's about a peccadillo that's yours and yours alone.
Oh yeah.
And that was the real problem. Like, and I'm like, this isn't a problem for the show. It's a problem you have. Like, I would get notes sometimes on documentaries. There was some Superman stuff when I was doing our Superman Returns documentary. There was a guy that didn't like certain responses to Superman being called messianic because he was very religious. And I'm like, look, you can't get away from the fact that the film actually states, Superman says the world is looking for a savior. And I hear people crying out to me. He literally references that, and there's all kinds of religious imagery when it comes to Superman. You can't remove that from our documentary. I mean, I had my favorite was when I was working on Star Trek V, and I had Shatner's audio commentary about the movie. Shatner talked about Timothy Leary being a inspiration for Cybok. And I got a note back from Paramount Legal that says, oh, no. You can't equate Star Trek to drug use. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's episodes about drug use from the first season of from the original series on. The Venus drug, the first episode of Next Generation, like, no, you can't say that. And they told us we had to cut out every reference to Timothy Leary in the audio commentary. And I'm like, you're telling the director you can't say what the director of the film was basing the villain on because he's a counterculture. I mean, he's a known counterculture guru, a big figure of the 1960s. Why? How is that going to hurt somebody? What are you saying? I mean, people could tell that was the reference, but we would have to cut it out.
My question is: have these people ever made a movie or TV show better
never.
with their advice?
No,
never. None of them.
None
24
of them
have done anything.
I'll say this. Now, I never worked in children's television.
Yeah.
But, I did. The worst was arguing with the lawyer that was at the FX network from, when I did a show called The X Show. I get into heated arguments about things that could get away with saying. But actually, the best experience was at G4 TV. The lawyer there was a guy named Keith, I remembered, and he was on my side. How much can you get away with? But Attack of the Show was not children's TV. And one of the things I asked him was, can I mispronounce swear words? So I would say this person is a real shatheed, and just get away with swearing, but not pronouncing it correctly. He goes, oh yeah, you can do that. He was trying to help me. So I don't want to imply all the people are bad.
Yeah,
but I think
Chris, it's probably different with
television.
it's probably different with like G4 because they were like so like off the radar, you know what I mean?
Right,
but when you're talking like network TV, I'm sure, man, there's just like people up the ass.
Well,
who are,
true.
I
like,
used to watch Power Rangers, and they would say it's morphin time, and in some places they would get edited because it sounds like they're saying it's morphine time, but it's morphin time, so like dumb shit like that. We had Satanic
which probably would have
Panic.
been a better show.
We had Satanic Panic when I was growing up. There's always a group trying to cancel shit, and my dad at the time used to think that He-Man was demonic. He didn't understand the power of Grayskull, and he thought he was getting the powers from Satan. So I couldn't watch that when I was a kid. Now we all understand now because we're all a lot more literate to what's going on. But yeah, if you say it confident enough and with enough fear, you can get people to believe anything.
And Robert, if you could have changed Timothy Leary to Mrs. Butterworth, that actually might have been cool.
Yeah, it was. I'll tell you. Here's another story. So, in our Star Trek: Star Trek: The Next Generation documentaries, Ron Moore, who created Battlestar Galactica and For All Mankind, tells a story that in the original series there was a planet that was. I mean, in The Next Generation, they wanted to write a story where they roll up on a planet where there's a Holocaust happening, where one side is literally shoving the other side into ovens. They're committing a planetary genocide, and they're eliminating, and it was like a Holocaust allegory. And Roddenberry had said that, the Enterprise can't interfere, even though it's a horrific experience. The Prime Directive says you can't stop this. And that was the horror of the episode, that the Enterprise couldn't put an end to this because it would be a violation of the Prime Directive. So I get back. I thought it was a really interesting story. I'd never heard that story before. The lawyers are like, oh, no. You can't use this story because it implies that Gene Roddenberry was an advocate of the Holocaust. And I was like, what? It's about the Prime Directive in Star Trek. I mean, Ron Moore just used that. I mean, that was the story, but he just used the Holocaust. He brought that up as an allegorical example of what this alien race was doing. And it was a really interesting story about the Prime Directive and how Roddenberry said that was the horror of the episode. The Enterprise was compelled by their laws and that they couldn't stop it.
Great
and
story.
that was the whole crux of the story. And they're like, you can't say that. And so I had to cut that story out. I fought, though, tooth and nail to keep that in because I'd never heard that story before. And it was a great illustration of the Prime Directive and how the Prime Directive can be horrific, but we have to maintain our ideals.
Yeah. They break that Prime Directive so much, it's probably better because they're just like, well, why the hell didn't they break it on that planet? But
yeah, but I mean, that was the story. But
idea.
they came back and they said, you're implying that people are going to take from this story that they're going to get. That's the whole thing. They think they speak for the audience. that they know what the audience is how they're gonna digest something.
Well, and what
And
they
it's
used to
always
do,
weird. I'm like, how do you know?
if you
The
couldn't
audience
break
is
the prime
smart.
directive, you would get a character from that planet and you would instill change in them, and it would be implied that like because they
100%.
met them, that change goes on to burn brighter. And
You're
yeah, but they
exactly
don't even-
right.
They don't
You're
even do
exactly
that
right.
anymore.
That's 100% right.